معكم علي أصحاب السعادة. الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning. Very good afternoon, actually. We had a weekly management meeting here in the same hotel since we were supposed to attend this conference today. It's indeed a great pleasure and an honour for us to participate in this 20th version of the GCC Government and E-Services Conference. Basically, my presentation I'll try to pinpoint some of the key foundational concepts as well as practices that need to be taken into account when we think about designing e-government strategies or even smart government strategies. I'll first, again, looking at the structure of the presentation, I'll first start with a short introduction, talking about the concept of e-government overall. I'm just putting, using the term of circle of attention to group the elements that we need to pay more attention to, the 6 elements that I'll be talking about in this presentation. So, to start with, the internet has changed the way that we communicate, how we interact, how we do live. In fact, the internet as a platform is changing or pushing governments to change and transform into a new, more dynamic as well as more responsive form of structure. When I look at e-government, and I'm sure that during the past 5 days you have came across different structures of e-government and different technologies as well as different case studies. The simplest model that comes to my mind whenever I think about e-government is these 4 phases of e-government. The first phase being where government organizations, countries develop websites, some interactions, capabilities with their customers. Then they go into the transactional phase where they start developing or putting online services to their customers. Lesser attention is being devoted to concepts like vertical integration and horizontal integration. Much focus is on the cataloging or transactional phase for different and various reasons. However, with the widespread use of mobile phones nowadays, governments are also pushed to use mobile preference and devices as a medium to provide services to citizens and the public overall. If I compare smart government to e-government or whatever, how they actually overlap, or what are the differences? In fact, if I use the same e-government maturity model, I see that organizations or government agencies are basically back to the square one of e-government maturity. Government organizations are trying to modify existing websites to make them available on mobile devices, mobile apps, developments, and so on and so forth. Also, many government organizations are also trying to enable mobile transactions over mobile devices. However, their efforts are being obstructed by the fact that they don't have sufficient capabilities to authenticate individuals. And I'll be looking at that in a second as well. So, in fact, what we see that in the coming future, governments will continue to inject more and more money into e-government, smart government initiatives. Also, with the rapid technological developments, we also expect that citizen expectations are going to be levels. So this is going to put more and more pressure on governments to transform themselves into more responsive, becoming more responsive, more dynamic to citizen needs. So this is where the circle of attention comes in place. I believe, and this is from a practitioner perspective, as well as the team that actually works with me internationally, we believe that there are certain technologies and concepts that we need to put in place to ensure that we are going to make design a proper e-government strategy. So these are basically, I'll start with the first one, cloud computing solutions, or the cloud computing approach. Cloud computing has been one of the hottest topics in the world. However, if we look at government practices, lesser attention is being given to cloud computing solutions. Basically, what cloud computing means, they refer to hosted services that are delivered over the internet, as simple as that. Research studies and different international studies indicate that public IT cloud services are expected to grow 7 times in the coming few years. And in fact, the other studies indicate that almost 50% of IT expenditure by 2016 will be of cloud-related platforms and applications. When you look at cloud solutions, for example, basically we talk about, for example, software or applications that are available on the internet as a service, platform that is available as a service, or infrastructure that is available as a service. So these are the type of solutions that are available. When we talk about cloud, we always refer to these services, which are available on demand and based on the needs of the customers, where they also pay use basis as well. So why cloud computing is a must? For e-government to prosper, we need to again pay more attention to cloud computing solutions. The cost-benefit ratio associated with cloud computing solutions are becoming too high to ignore. So it's something that government organizations need to pay more attention to. Basically, in practice, when we go to government organizations, they tend to focus more attention to the support functions, setting up ERP systems, email systems, CRM systems, collaborative systems, and so on and so forth. If we apply the rule of 80-20, you see that government organizations basically they pay more attention to support functions and developing environment support capabilities. So the recommendation here is that governments need to pay more. For example, they could use software as a service or application as a service for emails, CRMs, collaborative environments to support functions. And definitely this could make a huge difference when they follow such models. In fact, this is what we are doing in my organization, Emirates Identity Authority. We have been subscribing to online systems without having the need to set it up within the organization. And believe me, it made a big difference. And again, for security reasons, we believe that government organizations will be reluctant to subscribe to, for example, platform as a service concepts or even infrastructure as a service. So what the government agencies need to pay more attention to is to develop such platforms and such infrastructure that should be available over the cloud, and this should be part of the national e-government strategy. Definitely this is envisaged to support government organizations to accelerate the speed of transformation. And indeed for them to focus on their core capabilities. The second point in the circle of attention is about again having a ubiquitous electronic identity that could be used across different platforms, regardless whether it's actually a PC, a mobile device, or whatever mobile or technological development it is, regardless of the platform itself. The biggest challenge that is being faced in e-government is related to the fact that government organizations, they are not able as service providers to authenticate properly the online users. The problematic area is how to identify that the device that is being used to access a service is being authorized, or how we identify or authenticate the identity of individuals trying to seek services in online environments. So the dilemma that we are trying to solve here is that how we could develop a set of credentials that could be used to ascertain the identities, and they could represent a proxy of real identities, whether we are talking about a government or an individual. So what we are doing here in the UAE, for example, we have initiated a national identity management infrastructure, similar to initiatives in the GCC countries where they issue smart identity cards. This is just not an additional plastic card. It involves, it's very much based on advanced technologies to provide authentication, identification. We use biometrics, we use a smart card technology, and we also use PKI for higher level of security and to provide services like integrity, confidentiality, non-repudiation, and so on and so forth. Higher levels of security for transactions. So how do we envisage, we are again taking this infrastructure and leveraging it to the use of mobile identification. So what we are doing here in the UAE is through part of the national TSM that is going to be set up part of the smart government initiative in the UAE, we are going to take the credentials that exist today in the smart card itself to the GSM chip and insert it into those chip cards that are going to be produced to people. So, for example, in this case, people having mobile devices, mobile peripherals, they could access services using their mobile phones to, again, accessing services, and governments will have a mechanism to authenticate individuals and authenticate the transactions. We will have different scenarios where the credentials are going to reside in the chip, plus the credentials to reside in the card itself, and the telephone could be used as a card reader. The third element in the circle of attention is the integration. Many government organizations, and specifically when we talk about e-government practices, we have produced lots and lots of silo systems here and there. They are scattered. And again, if we look at the technological developments and again the solutions that are actually available today, we see lots of frameworks and lots of approaches and technical solutions, but none of them actually provide us with a solution to make governments better connected. So what we are looking for, and the key question being here, is to find a mechanism to enable all those silos, scattered systems to talk to each other. In other words, to be more interoperable. What we have been doing here at the UAE, for example, we have got a holistic approach that we follow for e-government transformation. For conventional government to transform into smart government or electronic government, indeed, processes, technologies will play a key role. However, the most important pillar that needs to exist is the identity management infrastructure, which should support governments to identify and authenticate individuals. So part of our national identity management scheme here in the UAE, what we have been trying to do is to ensure that we have got accurate databases, no duplications in government databases. So we started injecting the ID number into the government databases to ensure that these databases at least have got accurate records. And the second step was also to develop an authentic or integration platform, basically, with 14 government agencies, including federal as well as local authorities, to give us population data. They are considered to be the data owners, and of, for example, birth, death, marriage, divorce, education, health information. Indeed, this platform is going to support decision support system in the country, but at the same time, it is envisaged to support the progress of e-government and smart transformation in the country of the UAE. I've got, again, talking about the trends, the technological trends, the first part, the first three elements of the circle of attention. Let me just talk about, again, quickly about three other elements of the circle of attention where government organizations and countries need to pay more attention to. One is related to open data and open government. Open data basically refers to the fact that certain data need to be freely available to everyone to use and reuse without any restrictions from copyright, patents, or other mechanisms of control. Basically what open data means, it's about dissemination of data. The promise of open data is that, again, governments who actually employ the open data concepts, they could have a better, a more accelerated speed to transform into more citizen-centric by involving citizens and sharing data with them proactively. In fact, how e-government is being again measured nowadays and worldwide, it's being measured by how open they are in terms of their data, whether we talk about availability of data, accessibility, the digital format of data, and the frequency of updates. Indeed, I'm not talking here just about, again, some superficial data that should be available online. What I'm referring here is to some information, some data that could be converted into information, and then it could be converted into knowledge, which could support government transformation and also enhancing the services in the e-government overall. So for open data to be properly articulated or associated with e-government strategies, we need to have clear objectives and outcomes which should focus on the value that we are trying to create to citizens and residents. Indeed, open government and open data opportunities are endless. The promise is that this concept is going to introduce a new paradigm for government operations by sharing proactively data with citizens and the public overall. The concept of big data. I'm sure that you have been also hearing lots of case studies, stories about big data. Big data is the buzzword. Today, everybody talks about big data. What basically means big data, it refers to large amounts of data, structured and unstructured data, coming from social network systems, or also from the clicks and transactions as well, that could represent valuable insights. Indeed, these insights could enhance decision-making capabilities, whether we are talking about here enhancing or optimizing the processes, developing capabilities related to detection and prevention, for example, or even making governments need to be more prepared. Also, hiring the level of awareness of public, and also developing sustainable systems. Indeed, the promise again of big data is huge. It is seen as a vehicle to enable government transformation, which through the new capabilities that it could actually provide in terms of productivity, insights, trends of future trends, and also to support innovation by developing new capabilities. Again, the biggest challenge, I won't say that the challenge is actually is technology related, although there are huge technological solutions available. However, the biggest problem is related to humans and the human capital that are actually available to support such, such usage of such trends. Currently, the main challenge is related to the shortage of skills. The United States market is expected to face a challenge of securing 2 million jobs in the field of data analysis in the coming few years. This is the United States. Again, when you look at big data, it has got huge potential. It's like opening a water tap and the water is endless. Big data, for example, there are some reports that show big data could make huge opportunities, and you can make revenues from big data. For example, recent reports indicate that big data revenues exceeded $18 billion US, and it's also expected to grow as, again, up to $50 billion by 2017. So indeed, when we look at big data, how governments are actually operating today, the expenditure that they are actually, incurring, I'm sure that, again, savings are going to be of billions and billions of money in the government field. Last but not least, the element of knowledge management in e-government. Indeed, the first thing that comes to my mind whenever I think about, for example, being smart, it's knowledge. I can't really, think of a smart person without having some sort of knowledge. And again, when governments are trying to develop smarter governance, they need to associate their e-government practices with the application of knowledge management, which is quite fundamental here. Existing practices of knowledge management, we have been hearing so many organizations talking about knowledge management. However, driven by technological solutions, the focus is very much on the technology and the process that maintains, accesses, stores, disseminates data. But less attention is given to the people who are actually the users of these processes and the users of such technologies, who actually create and use knowledge and enhance it. The essence of knowledge management is basically to transform the implicit knowledge to explicit knowledge and injecting it back into the heads of the people so that they could actually process it and make a new knowledge out of that collectively. So what we need for knowledge management to succeed, we need a national framework for knowledge management, which should also coincide with e-government practices or smart government practices. So governments need to address the 6 dimensions of knowledge management in terms of how they create knowledge, how they conceptualize knowledge, how they make access to knowledge, how they make applications of knowledge, and how these are actually being reflected on the services that we provide, and basically on the quality of lives of our people, which should all together contribute to the development of a so-called knowledge economy. Let me just conclude my presentation. Indeed, the rapid technological developments and what is happening worldwide in terms of the exponential growth in the field of technology, governments have got no choice but to get more and more smarter. By 2045, for example, indications are there, forecasts are there, that even machine capabilities are going to exceed human capabilities. So with that, with having such input into our minds, and also the role of social network systems are going to reveal limitations of government practices and to make government organizations more and more transparent, as well making it subject to criticism. So governments basically need to go away from their internal focus to outside focus, where the focus is on the citizens and serving unanimous customers. For this to happen, governments definitely need to have a mental shift, and that mental shift should actually be reflected on their practices. Today, governments are very much reactive rather than being proactive. So for governments to be proactive, they have got to change the mental shift, to have a proper, a more responsive governance models that addresses the needs of citizens and the quality of the life of citizens. With that, I just conclude with a quote from Einstein. He said it once, that we can't really use the same level of thinking when we create the problem and use it when we actually try to solve the problem. It's all about the mental shift. If we'd like to be more smarter, we need to change our mental shift and to introduce such a paradigm shift that is expected by our citizens and the population that we serve. Thank you very much for your kind attention.